He's been talking about the fact that he was cloned at one of the cloning stations. A lot of these dumb bases, these military bases that have these dumb facilities, they all have underground cloning labs there, and he's been talking about this for a very, very long time. And he says that when you sell your soul, it's not actually your soul that you're selling. You're giving Hollywood or whoever it is the authorization to make a clone of you.
Hey guys, how you going? Cambell here from Autodidactic, and I have with me today Guy Anderson. You may have seen him. He's been on Tartarian Australia a few times now, and he's going to keep coming back. And he's the author of a couple of books, I think now. But the first one is um, the Cabbage Patch,
Tesla and the Cabbage
Tesla
Patch
and the
Kids.
Cabbage Patch Kids. Link below, guys. Yeah. So I thought I'd get him on and have a chat. So how you going, Guy?
I'm well, thank you. I'm well. Obviously, we had a bit of a tough day a couple of days ago, but we're
Yeah,
pushing on.
yeah,
Yeah, obviously, yeah, about the dog. So,
yeah.
but other than that, all good, all
Other
good. And the
than
second book, I'm halfway through writing.
okay, cool,
Yeah.
nice. All right, well, we'll have to talk about that when that's ready. But what I wanted to get into today is the whole orphan train, incubator baby, Cabbage Patch Kid kind of narrative. You've obviously written
Mm.
a book about it. So, oh, I'll just let you go for it. What are your thoughts on this whole, period of time? What was going on?
Well, my personal thoughts are that everybody had been wiped out, or at least the majority of the population had been wiped out. The Tartarian Empire had gone, and they were now repurposing buildings, digging buildings out of the mud, and needed to repopulate. And what I find strange is that at the same time this is happening, they introduced the Lunacy Act, and we'd had a lot of civil wars, the Napoleonic Wars, and a lot of men had died. And at that time, with the Lunacy Act, a single parent, a female single parent, was considered automatically insane. Your husband dying at war was actually a reason to be committed, and that gave them access to the kids.
To the kids,
All
yeah.
of a sudden, you've got all these orphans, and we experienced across the world different famines and the outbreak of different diseases, cholera and other things, and a lot of kids were left roaming the streets, and people just came in and swooped them up, and by people I mean the parasitic elite, by one form
Yes,
or
the
another,
top hat people.
swept them up, and
Mm.
all of a sudden, with along with these incredible asylums. Pardon?
The top hat people.
Sorry, Cambell, I lost you there for a second.
Oh, sorry, am I back? I just said, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, the top hat people.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're back now. Yeah, I can hear you. Um, and if you look at it, you have the Lunacy Act, the opening of asylums, the opening of prisons, the opening of orphanages, all at the same time. What was the sudden need for this? And I think that the adults out there that were fighting back against the New World Order and the change um, were, and obviously ones that had survived the war or weren't involved in the various civil wars, were locked away. They were incarcerated one way or another, and again, access to their children. And you had a mass of orphans. I think Russia, in particular, and clocking on for 500,000 orphans at one point. Um, they used these children to re-establish the population, to repopulate, certainly across the northern hemisphere, but also, of course, where you are too.
Mm.
A lot of children. I mean, that the child migrant program didn't stop until I think around the 40s, something like that.
For sure. Until then, yeah. And we had the convict children. Apparently, there were
Mm,
boatloads of just children coming over
yeah,
here.
yeah, convict children.
Mm. It's a crazy story, isn't it? I mean, they were like, yeah, nabbing children. I think, as young as 7, probably, younger, right?
Mm,
And try, yeah, put him on a boat and send him out to Australia as convicts just for, stealing food because they were hungry or something, right? Or
yeah.
something else frivolous. So it's pretty crazy story. Like, a question is like, why were all these kids sort of wandering around? Do you think that they were made into orphans, or do you think that's kind of just a bit of a backup story to the fact that they were just being sent into orphanages, right? Which could have been re-education kind of, centers, right? Because this is what seems to have been going on, right? They were introducing a new narrative, so they have to change everyone's, story to their story, and that's like you say, why they would lock away the ones that didn't conform. They all go to the loony bin, and then you got the kids to re-educate.
I mean, in America, in North America, lots of the indigenous children were taken and sent off to orphanages and definitely re-education centers because they were taught, well, they were forced to speak English. And I've spoken to a lady who actually went to one herself, and they forced her to no longer have an accent. I mean, she was beaten. They didn't want her to even have an accent. She had to speak without one, and beaten until they literally beat it out of her. And they were trying to make everybody speak English, um, and also to provide them a new history, a new backstory, and they were wiping out people's cultures. And yeah,
Totally, yeah. We had the stolen generation in Australia, same story.
yeah,
They stole the native children and sent them off to, yeah, like schools and like Catholic sort of monastery type places, and
mm-hmm.
re-educated them, dressed them like white people and didn't teach they were allowed to sort of learn about their culture or anything. And yeah, it's pretty, and that was, there's still people alive today that went through that, right? That went right up into the
Yes,
50s, probably longer.
yeah.
Mm.
And have you ever thought that the people that they shipped from England to Australia might just have been children, that no adults actually went? Have you ever? Because that sits with me. I often think that.
I've never thought that there's no, just because, they needed a workforce, right, to dig out all the buildings that they found. But I'm sure, I mean, we get told, in the basic kind of narrative, they kind of mention, oh, there were a few children, but I think we're talking boatloads and boatloads, of them, as opposed to the odd one or two, which they kind of try and tell us.
I sometimes wonder if it's been inverted, if the majority of people that arrived there were kids. Um, because if you look at images of the Industrial Revolution,
Yeah,
and you look at the coal mining and the factories, it is just children working these. It was just children mining. You've got the odd adult wandering around, but I just wonder whether or
okay,
not
yeah,
the bulk of what of the people that were shipped were actually kids because they arrive with no baggage, literally no baggage. They've got no history.
yeah,
Very easy to manipulate and alter their past, give them a new name. Whereas the adults wandering around are going to be saying, "Well, hold on a minute, we're digging out old buildings. We're not building anything." The kids wouldn't know any different.
no,
I
no,
just wonder. Yeah, it's
it's
just
it,
something that.
yeah. That's a good point. Like you say, the Industrial Revolution, they were doing everything,
Mm,
like machinery to mining. So yeah, of course, they could dig buildings out and clean them up, right? And then you just feed them the whole new narrative, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
and off you go. Because that's what Australia and America and New Zealand and countries like that have got, is we've got a start date to the narrative, right?
yes, yes. You have. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everything
yeah.
before
Well,
that's just weird. Oh, they didn't
yeah,
write anything down. They didn't know anything. They were just, until a white man got here.
yeah,
Well, I tend to
which
think white man was already here as well in Australia.
hmm
Um,
I agree.
I don't know if you've looked into bush rangers at all, but we have like this narrative of bush rangers, I guess like highwaymen, I think is that what you call
Right.
them? So
Yeah.
they used to,
Yeah. That is what we call them here. Yeah.
stand and deliver, sort of
Yeah.
rob
Dick
people and
Turpin
run
was
around
our
and
famous one.
yeah. Um, because it was all these sort of little bands of outlaws, right? And all they
Mm.
were really doing when you look into it, they were fighting the establishment. Like there's not really a lot of robbing and stuff that went on. They would stick up for the people and they would defend themselves and basically fight all the cops that came around to try and kill them. And I often wonder, were they here? Were they just people that were already here that were just defending against this invader, right?
I've seen a few people talking about there being Dutch settlements there
Mm, yeah,
that
yeah.
predates the English arriving.
Yeah. That's in the narrative. They say that they were here and they didn't. They just decided they didn't want to colonize it. But they
Mm.
were definitely. There was a shipwreck on off Western Australia in the 1600s. Dirk Hartog. I think that must have been the captain, or the ship. And then they apparently some of the crew survived. And lived with the natives and so there was a few sort of white native babies popping out, but that's all we get. Like really, they just kind of say that they sailed around, had a bit of a look. But I've heard, and that's the 1600s, late 1600s. But I've heard that they could have been here a couple hundred years earlier too, like in bigger numbers. So
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some. We talked about this in a podcast a while back on Tartaria, Australia, and it was we just briefly touched on it. That there's a few paintings kicking around that very early paintings of Australia that show windmills, and I just that with what I've heard about the Dutch being there, wondered if perhaps the number of Dutch was a little bit bigger than we've been led to believe.
it could be. I mean, one of the oldest buildings in Perth is a windmill, and the Dutch East India Company, right? Like
Mm.
they were everywhere, like taking
Yeah,
over everything,
yeah,
right? So, yeah, I wouldn't put it past it at all that there was Dutch colonies around.
mm.
Yeah, yeah, haven't really done any digging into it, but I mean, we don't have much of a legacy, so I don't know what would have happened to make them leave, but maybe that was the war. Maybe it was the English versus the Dutch, right? Who
Yeah.
knows?
Could well have been. Could well have been.
Yeah,
Well, all
well,
we know is that our history is not quite what we've been led to believe. So it's so hard, isn't it, to substantiate anything?
yeah, I know, right? You've just kind of got to, make up ideas and start following them and see if they lead anywhere, right? Like
Yeah,
that's kind
yeah.
of the only way to do it. Or find smart people to talk to, I guess. But I mean, in Australia, there's like, from what I've sort of learned, is the first fleet wasn't convicts; it was all soldiers. Like
Yeah,
it was, and armaments and weapons and things, and they were coming for war. And I heard it was 1770 the first landing, not 1788. So there's all these discrepancies. It's
mm.
um, I mean, we know, right? Like, have you looked into Anatoly Fomenko and all, and his work with 1,000 missing
Absolutely.
families?
Yeah, I've written
Yeah,
about
yeah.
him actually.
So,
Yeah.
we don't know where we are, like all the, and isn't it crazy that we've got a calendar that starts, it doesn't start at the start. Like it starts halfway
No,
through.
it doesn't.
The year zero has got like BC, right, before the year zero. And then there's,
Yeah,
I think it's Jewish are in the year 5,000 and Muslims are in the year, I don't know, 7,000 or something. It's very strange.
yeah. Yeah. When I joined the Freemasons, and before anyone gets worried,
Illuminati
I
confirmed.
haven't been for a very long time. I haven't been for a long time. I don't think I'd be welcome anymore, but I haven't been for nearly 10 years. Um, and I think if they read my book, then they'd want blood. But when I joined, and you go through a series of initiations, if you like, you're raised through the ranks. So you start off as an well, you're an apprentice, an entered apprentice, and then you're a fellow craft, which is the second degree, and then the third degree is master mason. And when you become a master mason, they give you this huge parchment with two pillars on it, and it's signed on behalf of Prince Michael, the Duke of Kent, because in the UK it's always a senior blood royal. So Prince Philip couldn't have done it. So it was Prince Michael, Duke of Kent. He was the head of the Freemasons, and he signs it, and you sign it. And on the date was 5,000 and
Oh,
5,021. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Now, apparently, somebody said that that's going back to when the Freemasons started, and the reason we all wear mourning suits. I say we because once you're in, you're in. But I don't. I'm not. I don't participate. I'm not part of it. But you're in permanent mourning, and you're in mourning for someone called Hiram Abiff. Hiram Abiff was the first Mason that started the Freemasons, and he was killed for not handing over the password and the handshake to a group of people that wanted to join, and he refused to tell them the information. So he was killed, and that is why when you see them with the black suits and sometimes mourning suits, that's the reason, because you're in permanent mourning for Hiram Abiff. So so does it go
Wow.
back to the day that happened, or the date of the first meeting, or is that the year as far as they're concerned? Now, I've never been
Yeah,
able to find out why.
yeah, right. Well, it's interesting. I think Judaism's like 5,000 in the hundreds, like 5,600 or something. So I don't think it's their calendar, but yeah, well, this is the thing, right? Like, that's why we start in the middle, right? Is because our calendar is based on, Jesus, right? And his death.
Yeah,
So that they could be basing that, yeah, how old's Freemasonry? Is it 5,000 years old?
exactly. That's how old is it? Nobody can ever give you a
Nobody
straight
knows.
answer on that. But with Jesus, it's interesting because a quick Google search will show you that he wasn't born on the year zero. He was born 3 BC.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
So if they know exactly, why are we on this calendar if they know that?
Mm,
I
yeah,
don't, I don't know.
and
I
I
mean,
also
there's
don't
been a few resets though as well, hasn't there? There's been like
absolutely.
there's been years where they've taken days out, and I think one time
Mm,
it took 10 days, was it? 10 days out of a month or something. So it doesn't add up to years, but I mean, it's just time's a weird thing. So, and I mean, I guess if we're talking that there was a reset mid 1800s, we really don't know. The only year we know is what we've been told,
no,
right? And that's the thing
yeah,
with all this research is if you find a picture and it's got a date written on it, all that really means is someone wrote a date on it, right? It's not actually confirmation that that's the date the picture was
yeah,
taken.
exactly. When did they write that day?
When did they write it? So it's
And how long? Like I I sort of think about AI quite a bit, and I wonder how long they've been able to use that technology, and in what form. So, are a lot of the old photos that we see, are they just photoshopped?
yeah,
Is a lot of the old footage AI? Because before we get things, they're often used, aren't they, for military purposes for some considerable length of time before they come into the public domain. So how long have they had the ability to doctor photos and so on? We know about the vanilla skies where they whiten the background of old photographs and postcards so you can't see what's behind some of these buildings. But how long have they actually been able to do that? How long have they been manipulating things? Have they had AI a long time?
yeah. I actually did a video last week with Howdy McCoskey, and we're talking about this exact question. I mean, I think it's been around for for probably forever, right? May not have been in a
Mm,
usable form, but we have these stories of black goo and things, which are, it seems like this sort of intelligent
yes.
electrical, kind of self-assembling thing. And of course, like inventions, right, are just things that come from the inventory, right? This is all the stuff they've collected from the old world and put in their inventory. And when they're ready to release
Mm,
it to us, it's an invention, right? So I'd say they've had it a long time. I kind of see AI as the evil, right? The devil, whatever you want to call it, the closed circuit, the L, electric, this whole electrical system and everything. It's the inorganic.
yeah.
So it's the opposite to what was created, right? To the creation, which,
Yeah.
to me at least, is God, right? The whole nature and all that, and AI and the whole
Yeah.
electrical system is the opposite to that. And it's also electricity, right? That runs it all,
Yeah.
just smokeless fire, right? The jinn.
Yeah.
So I'd say a long time. And that's the thing. Then you've got this question of what's real, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Especially in a day like today when um, most of the stuff we see is on a screen. It's not like
Yeah.
we're going out and handling photos or looking at pictures. We're like, everything's on a screen. So it's like when we started the Tartaria research, there was stuff around, bits and pieces, but mainly we were sort of like, just digging into, some of these buildings and just laughing at the explanation. But then as we went into it, like everyone
Mm,
collectively, all this new information started popping up. All these maps suddenly started appearing, and there was star forts
mm,
everywhere, and there was this and all this info, all
mm.
the old books started popping up. And yeah, you just kind of got to wonder where did all this stuff come from?
Yeah. And why did it suddenly pop up? Because for me, it really, I really went into this particular rabbit hole during the lockdown 2020.
Yeah.
Before that, it wasn't on my radar. So how did it suddenly come out? How did that happen? Who leaked it? Where did this all start?
It seems to have started in Russia. There's reports that Putin leaked some maps
Yes,
of
in
Tartaria.
2012.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then that CIA document got
Yes, I got
got
that.
found. That one. Yep, yep.
Mm,
I found it off a channel, New Earth. It's called New Earth. And she had a series called When the Survivors Wake Up, and she might have even been Ukrainian. She was around Russia somewhere, but I don't think she was actually Russian. But and then after I found her, then the next couple of people I found were Russians. So I
mm.
think that's sort of where it started. But that's where I found out about star forts, mud floods, Tartaria.
Yeah.
The all the buildings are the same, like all that kind of stuff. Like back in, I don't know, 2015 or something. And I was just like, what the hell is going on here? So, but I mean, that's the thing. Like before then, and I've been researching alternative history most of my life, right? And I'd never come across, like when I saw my first staff one, I was just like, "You what the?"
Yeah.
And then when I realized they were everywhere, I was just like,
Yeah.
"What is going on here?"
Yeah.
Like, and then suddenly we've got pictures and maps of them all, right? All these old maps and books full of
Yeah.
all the old images of them, and so
Yeah.
it's a weird one. It's almost like, but I mean, I guess it's what is reality, right?
Mm,
Is it just a story? Is there something that's, I mean, we know it's all energy, and we create it, right? We change it, we
mm.
manifest it, whatever you want to call it. So I always wonder if we manifested like all this Tartarian knowledge, right? And information just because we're looking at it, right?
Yeah.
Double slit
Yeah.
experiment. We're looking at it. But it could just be a story, right? And this is the time when we're supposed to know. And obviously, I like to look at it that, this is the knowledge that's going to help us get to a place like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of utopia. that if everything that we've read and that we've been told is true, then to live in frequencies that balance and resonate with the planet is what we should be doing now, and we're so far away. And this is why I do believe that this is, they call it like Satan's short season, or
Yeah,
Satan's little
Satan's little
season, or
season. Yeah,
and that does tie up a 250-year period where they just wreak havoc and destroy everything. But if the Great Reset happened at the beginning of New World Order in 1776, then that's up next year. The
yes,
250-year reign is up next year. What
interesting.
happens
Eh?
after that?
Well, this is what I always think of when I hear that is we've got to be bloody close to the end of it. First, I think,
Mm,
not very nice, God, to let the devil run amok while we're here, right?
mm,
But yeah, like if there's any truth to that, then we're up next year. We've just gone into the age of Aquarius.
mm.
Like literally, I think it was last month, like when we've actually fully gone into it. I kind of see it as, I don't believe the whole God, devil, their beings fighting each other kind of narrative. But I think I see it as frequency, right? That we've been in
Yeah.
the low, part of the sine
Yes.
wave, and now we're going up to the higher part. So I know they talk about 1,000 year reign,
Mm,
but that's probably not true. It's probably more like 200 year, right? 200 down, 200 up. So it's like a sine wave. Um, because I don't believe there is an end time, right? It's like that there's just now, like a lot of people, obviously, of that faith believe that we're at the end times and all the
yeah.
orbs are the fallen angels returning. And I'm like, come on, guys, look around. The fallen angels are already here. Like they're not
Yes, they
returning,
are.
man. They're
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Like, how do you not see that? So yeah, it's all interesting. But yeah, I agree that yeah, we seem to be in the little season now, right? If that's what you want to call it.
Mm,
And the last
mm.
cycle was a lot different.
Yeah. Have I told you my sort of wacky theory about Genghis Khan and Jesus?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah, yeah.
have.
Tell it again though. We did that, I think, on the first Tartaria.
It's I just think that if you look at, in religious terms, if you look at, let's say we are in this reign of Satan right now, and that it is about to expire, that the 1,000 years before was the millennial reign of Christ. Well, it's also when the Tartarian Empire appears to have been at its peak, when they were building these star forts and these incredible structures that we have every city and town in the world
Mm.
has. Working with frequency and building cathedrals and cymatics and harnessing energy. And so, if that was a 1,000-year period where the Tartarian Empire ruled, it also coincides with the millennial reign of Christ. And I find it strange that if history is inverted to the extent that we've seen, then is it possible that Genghis Khan wasn't this warmonger? That actually he was the complete opposite of what we've been told. We know that the Mongolian Empire really was the Tartarian Empire, and Jesus spent a lot of time in Tibet
Yeah.
and in the Far
Yeah.
East.
Yeah.
Um, so is it? And then when you look at Genghis Khan, his father's name translated to Yeshua, which
Yeah.
was Jesus's real name. So I wonder, and I can't let this go. I wonder if Jesus's son was Genghis Khan. Both had red hair.
Jesus
Both
had
from
red
the
hair.
Yeah. Jesus had red hair.
Oh,
Genghis Khan had red hair.
I didn't know
They
Jesus
were
had red
they
hair. Jesus
Yeah,
was a ringer. Oh my God.
yeah, yeah. And if you look at Gilgamesh, he had red hair. A lot of people had red hair. A lot of key people throughout history um, were redheads.
Yes. Yeah, and they're
And
still one of the small, I think they are the smallest group, right? The redheads, especially
hmm
red hair, green eyes, is still very prized in a lot of
hmm
different cultures. And I think I think they've got a higher incidence of RH negative, is that right? Blood type?
yeah,
Mm. And of
the
course, I
blood
mean,
type.
like
Yeah, which
which,
yeah,
which is just I can't. I mean, I learned about that when I was in my teens, right? That RH negative means they've got a complete different lineage as far as science is telling us through their
yeah,
DNA because they
yeah,
come from the rhesus or we come from the rhesus monkey or it's in our past and they have none
yeah.
of it.
No,
Like,
it's an
why is
alien
this a bigger
alien blood group.
deal? Like, like it's a different species.
Technically, it is, isn't it? It's funny because my mother-in-law, she's well, funnily enough, my wife is from Tanzania,
Okay.
and her parents, I think her dad's parents were from Madagascar, and then it shoots off, and some are from India and some are from somewhere else, and she's got a bit of Germanic in her as well. She's a mixture of things, and she's dark skinned. She was born with the Mongolian blue spot. Uh, Now that's actually, if you Google that, the Mongolian blue spot, it's normally on a chart baby's bum.
Okay.
That shows that you are a direct descendant from Genghis Khan. Both my boys were born with the same
What
Mongolian blue spot.
so what is it? What's a Mongolian blue spot? Is it
It's about that sort of
like a
size.
birthmark?
It is, but it doesn't stay for long. It's only there for a few weeks, few days, few months, varies. Yeah, they're
It
born with it.
disappears.
It disappears, and again, I hate using this sort of expression, but Google it. I know Google is the last place we want to go for the truth, but it does say on there that the Mongolian blue spot shows that you are a descendant from Genghis Khan. Now, my mother-in-law,
But
when I first met her, she told me that she was Rh negative, and I said, "Oh wow, so you've got alien DNA. You're an alien. It's not from this planet. There's not. It's not part of our Darwin's theory of evolution. You're not part of that." She said, "No, I'm Atlantean."
okay.
Now, if you met her, this is not someone who's into conspiracy theories. She's very sort of. She's nearly 80 now. Very normal. Lived a very normal life. There's nothing amazing or weird going on anywhere. Very humble. Um, Lives in a little council house in Milton Keynes. Her husband was a taxi driver. There's nothing weird or sinister there, but she just used to come out with that. She'd say, "Well, I'm Atlantean," and I'd say to her, "Where did you get that from?" She says, "Well, everybody knows that, don't they?" Now, this is someone who wouldn't know who David Icke is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And is that because she was born with the blue, what's it called? The blue spot. The
Mongolian blue spot.
blue spot.
Yeah.
So
So then my wife, then my two kids.
they've all had it. Jeez, man.
Mm,
You've got
mm,
an Atlantean family. Like, it's an interesting color, blue, right? Like, do you think that's
hmm
got anything to do with the
Blue blood.
blue blood? Yeah, exactly, right? And like because we all know that, those who claim to be royal, they're all infiltrators, right? None of them are actually of the original bloodlines. It's all being messed up. And so do you think that's maybe something they've used? They've taken and gone, no, we are blue bloods.
Oh yeah,
Of course we were all born with that. I mean, it's not like you can't prove that
yeah.
they weren't, right? Um, yeah, right. So who now that we're talking about that, who do you think was behind this reset? Who was behind all this kidnapping babies? Was it the royals? Was it the those people who like Freemasonry or
I think ultimately behind all of it, all paths lead to Rome, and it's the Jesuits.
Ah,
I think it's the Jesuits. I think they're behind all of it. They're kind of like the militia arm of the Roman Catholic Church, aren't they? They're the foot soldiers. The Jesuits seem to be behind everything. That's from what I can make out, and obviously then they've got this pyramid of power, haven't they? And the Jesuits are right at the top, reporting to a world monarch. Now I don't know who or what that is. It might not even be a being as we know them. It could be something completely different. It could
the
just be a
AI, right?
massive goo.
It could just be a big laptop.
Yeah, yes, it could be, I believe that this has been hidden in plain sight. That they tell us, don't they, through universal law, and that they tell us everything that's going on and everything they've done through the media. And I often wonder if that saying that all paths or all roads lead to Rome. Is that the Wizard of Oz? Is that the Yellow Brick Road? And when you get there and they pull back the curtain, there's just one man there orchestrating everything behind a screen. And I wonder if that actually is a metaphor, and that's what really goes on. That ultimately, no matter what happens, no matter how we look at this pyramid of power, who's in control, who isn't, the World Economic Forum, the Council of 13, the Club of Rome's one to look into, because you won't find anything on YouTube about them other than their own podcasts. Nothing. No one talks about them. No one's looking into them. They've got it under control. No one can put anything out there about these people on mainstream social media, at least. And I just wonder, like, ultimately, that there's going to be one person sat at the top. There's always going to be one person that makes the ultimate decision. Now, who is that? Some people say it's Pepe Orsini, the Grey Pope.
But yeah, yeah, yeah.
But is it? Is it? He keeps a very low profile.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to think that whoever it is, we would never find out their name unless we somehow, I don't know, Indiana Jones them. That would be someone who's never in the spotlight, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the one that we see would, be a few steps down, I would think. But I mean, it's an interesting theory. I mean, that's getting back to again, what is this place, right? Is
Mm,
this a simulation that's controlled by some mad dude, like,
mm,
or is it like a good simulation that has a virus, right? A virus. Ooh.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe it got
yeah. We love a
infected
virus.
not that long ago, right? And that's what this infiltration AI thing is. Like, what are your thoughts
Mm,
on that? Like, because a lot of people think it's a prison planet. We've been sent here,
yeah,
we've been trapped, and there's the whole soul thing
yeah.
and all that. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Like,
I think
I don't
that
know.
I think NASA would call it the Van Allen belt. The Bible would call it the firmament. I do think it's a closed planet, even if it's just because there's a belt of radiation. I don't think we can get out of low Earth orbit.
No.
Um, it, when they spoke to Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, and said to them, did you get through the belt of radiation? No, I don't think we went that far. We went to the moon, didn't you? And of course, Buzz Aldrin towards the end started telling people, well, no, we never actually went there. But and if you look at video footage of them after they landed, they don't exactly look overjoyed, do they?
No, they
They look
don't.
thoroughly fed up. They look pissed off.
Mm. Yeah, there's an interview with one astronaut, I can't remember his name, and he's being asked, how did you get through the Van Allen's belt
Mm,
when you went to the moon? How did you get through? What did you use? How did you stop the radiation?
mm.
And he said, "Oh, well, we just didn't know about it.
Yeah. How did you wave through a glass
We
window
just
and
didn't
not
know it was
get
there, so it
any
didn't affect
radiation?
us." It's,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I agree. We're in an enclosed system. Do you think it's a simulation? Like, do you think?
No, I don't. I don't. And the
Um,
more, I've heard David Icke talk about this a lot, and what puts me off the thought that it's a simulation is that Elon Musk is saying it is. Now, anything he says, I would flip on its head. That there's something about him. Um, I suppose you saw his Nazi salute the other day.
Yeah, yeah,
This
yeah.
he is not. I would go as far as to say that he is a false prophet. Now, when he came out and
He
spoke out about the
yeah,
pandemic, we thought he was on our side, and then he gets X and what Twitter calls it X, and freedom of speech is back. This man is not to be trusted.
X marks the spot.
There's absolutely there's something about that man. And what's his
Yeah,
obsession with Mars? Why can't he make this place a better place? Why
yeah,
do
I
we
know,
need to go
right?
to another planet and trash that?
Yeah,
Why can't we fix this? Spend your money on this one. We've got a beautiful planet here. It's just very wealthy people that he associates with have destroyed a lot of it.
yeah.
So
Well, I mean,
what's the obsession?
I've never, yeah, I did some research on Elon like years ago when he first started popping up. I was like, who's this person? And then since then, I've never really trusted the guy.
No,
He's of
he's
the
not to be
bloodline,
trusted.
check
Yeah.
out his parents,
Hmm.
and his ex-wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah. And his
Grimes,
mum, have
was
you
it?
seen his mum?
Yes, exactly. She's very
Very,
similar to Grimes.
very strange looking woman as well. Still models, I believe.
Yeah, she's like 70 or something. Yeah.
Mm,
Some very
yeah.
high society. But I mean, he fits the profile perfectly, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he
The guy
does.
who comes and he offers, all these
Mm,
solutions to the problems. He's going to fix everything. And then, he turns out to be not what he says and he wants to put a chip in your head. I mean, he's already come out and said he wants to put a chip in people's
yeah.
heads. And the X thing, because
Y- yeah.
there's
Yeah.
X like Twitter, there's SpaceX, and there's a couple other things as well. So he's writing to his exes, which
He is.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure what the meaning of X is completely, but
Yeah. And his kid as well, the baby he had recently.
I didn't hear about that one. Another one. Apparently, he's got seven or eight
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. And the eldest one doesn't have anything to do with him, refuses to even acknowledge his existence. A little bit like Tom Hanks' eldest son.
The
Um,
tattooed one with
yeah.
the big like
Yeah.
bloody Illuminati pyramid on his chest.
Yeah. Yeah, he was, if we're to believe what he's saying, then at one point, I guess he was really into it. But Elon Musk, Elon Musk, to me, is Leon scum.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
just play around with it. Yeah,
I actually
Leon
said
scum.
I said that in the video, and I think I offended a few people. I got some nasty comments. What did I didn't call him. What did I call him? Elon Lone scum.
Oh, good. I like that. I just think of Leon from the film Leon, where about the assassin. But yeah, I think you're probably on to lone scum. Yeah, and well, Tesla's another interesting one, isn't it? Because if you look at Tesla, then his surname's Steele
A man of steel.
to take. No, no, as in theft. Steele, Steal.
Yeah, 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 not double A. Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Man of
so to
steel.
take something that isn't yours, like every single patent that he was given credit to, is it possible that they're
Oh,
laughing at us? Because
he was from Serbia, man. Like that place was Tartarian Central almost,
mm,
right? Like it's
mm,
it's covered. It's still in old world buildings, but there's a reason as well that that whole region has basically been in war for like the last 100 years
yeah,
almost, right?
yeah,
They've just been bombing the shit out of it. So, yeah, I think it's very possible that he found that tech literally still in the buildings and worked it out, or
yeah,
found the books or the schematics or whatever
yeah,
and worked out because he knew how things actually work. So he's obviously found that out and then tried it, and then everything. That's why everything worked, right? Because he knew
yeah.
he learnt the
But
secret of the free energy and all this stuff,
did
magnetic.
he exist though? Did he actually
Well,
exist? And that's another one because I've had this argument with a few people, and they say, "Well, of
there's
course he existed, and there's a museum for him in Serbia." I think, okay, all right, there's a museum. That's great. But is there any video footage of him anywhere? No, nothing. Well, the museum's got some, I was told. I contacted them, nothing. Um, Well, perhaps he was camera shy. Okay, he used to stand up and do talks and presentations and meet with famous people and go to dinner parties. Why are there only ever images of him? Either when he was around the time he was building his tower, and he was over in America and working, working with J.P. Morgan and
Yeah, Westinghouse. Yeah,
Westinghouse and Wardenclyffe and so on. So we see those images of him. Looks like he's probably sort of 30s, 40s, something like that. Then we only ever see images of him as an old frail man. There's
yeah.
nothing in between.
No,
Um,
there's what? There's three photos of him when he's young, I
yeah,
think. Uh, and that's about it, right? And then, yeah, like
yeah.
you said, he lived into the 40s, so they definitely had film, right, in the 20s and 30s.
Einstein was being filmed.
Yeah. So
Um,
and he's this great inventor, right? Who,
yeah,
like built Warden, like why wasn't Wardenclyffe filmed? Why wasn't that a
yeah,
documentary, right? That was this big state of the art, first of its kind thing done by a
yeah.
billionaire.
It's
And
still on Amazon. That documentary is still up on Amazon at the moment.
yeah,
I think
right.
it's free. You don't have to subscribe to a separate channel or anything. If you've got Amazon, then it's still there. It's well worth watching.
Yeah, right. What's that one called? Wardenclyffe.
It is called
Yeah,
Wardenclyffe.
right.
Yeah, yeah. But so, and people have said to me, "Well, of course he existed. My granddad knew him. Did he? Have you got a photo of him with your granddad? No, but they worked together. You got anything at all you can share with me? No, nothing, I'm afraid. No, of course you haven't. That's what everybody else says. Well, of course he existed. He did this, 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 and this. Oh, for Christ's sake. Like 9/11, wake up.
Yeah,
They've been
yeah,
messing with
yeah.
us for
People
years.
saw
You
planes,
got,
right? Yeah, I know, right?
yeah, yeah. Nobody saw a plane.
No,
No,
no.
nobody,
But they
yeah,
saw them on the news, right? And this is kind of
yeah.
something they do, right? They just replay it over. I
Mm,
mean, how many times did they replay that scene?
I
Right.
know,
Right.
I
And so
know.
anyone who saw it or who was there would just, it's easy to think, oh, well, that's what I saw.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know,
And
like,
no one actually died, did they? They say that actually no one has any. I know there are things up there, so, at ground zero, saying that lots of memorial things, but actually people have come out and said, well, my partner worked in that building, and they were told not to come in that day, and they were somewhere else, and there was this weird conspiracy going around that anybody that had an Apple computer, had a Mac, wasn't killed. They've got some sort of warning come up on their screen. Anybody that had an Apple device
yeah,
was told to get out of the building. But no, of course, none of the directors, none of the major shareholders, nobody with any element of power at all was in that building at the time. And
no,
it just, was it an insurance job? No,
no.
these people don't need the money. This was a reason to go and bomb and start a war in the Middle East again. And
Well, yeah, yeah,
they
it introduced a lot of laws,
mm,
restrictive laws, like all this crap that's going on at the bloody airports now. Like that's all
yeah,
because of 9/11, right? And
yeah,
other
getting our
restrictive
fear level
laws.
up.
And then they took down the twin, Boaz and Joachim, is it? Like the twin poles of the
Boaz,
Masons, right? The number 11.
yeah, Boaz, and yeah,
So
yeah, which are the two columns that are on the parchment I mentioned earlier
that
on.
you signed,
That
yeah,
is
yeah, 5,000.
that those are the columns. Yeah, Boaz and yeah, yeah,
Yes,
which no one's supposed to know the name of Boaz. We're not even supposed to pronounce it fully. We're supposed to only half it or letter it, and never allowed to actually say the whole word.
really.
Um, and the same for the other column. Do you know? Yeah, yeah, we're
What?
not allowed to
Yeah.
actually
How
say
do you
it.
pronounce it? Is it
I keep
Joachim
saying
or
we because
Joachim?
Jarkin,
Jarkin, is it? Jarkin.
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 Yeah, yeah. But the stuff, everything that at the level I got to, anything that you want to know about that, it has been around on the net for a long time. You could quite easily find out the handshake and blag your way into a meeting. But it wouldn't be worth attending because most people that are into it already know everything that happens, and above me is where all the action is.
Yeah.
I got to the third level. You can't get to the 33rd level. That's a closed shop, and you've got people who are slightly under that, like Jay-Z, and going around doing all this bollocks, thinking that they really are now part of. They're now got a seat at the main table. They haven't. They're all they get, I think, at that level of power is a bit of a heads up on what's going on and what's going to happen. I don't think that they're automatically given free entrance to an underground bunker that's going to save them.
Mm.
I think that they're just getting the message out there and sort of helping to brainwash the public and being paid. Well, they've sold their soul, haven't they? And that's, funnily enough, Donald Marshall. I don't know if you have you heard of Donald Marshall.
No.
He is well worth looking into. Member of family, is member of the Illuminati. He's been talking about the fact that he was cloned at one of the cloning stations. A lot of these dumb bases, these military bases that have these dumb facilities, they all have underground cloning labs there, and he's been talking about this for a very, very long time. And he says that when you sell your soul, it's not actually your soul that you're selling. You're giving Hollywood or whoever it is the authorization to make a clone of you.
Clone you.
And yeah, and that's what you're selling. So this clone can now be used for all sorts of acts of depravity.
I've heard the stories, yeah, man. Like it's
Yeah, like Bernie Mac, and they say that, and Donald Marshall says that, I've been trying to reach out to him, but he doesn't reply to anything, and he doesn't even reply to comments on Facebook. He just puts information out there. He says that the deal is that if you play ball, what happens with these clones is that every night when you go into REM, the information, all of your memory for the last 24 hours is uploaded to the clone. So if it's interviewed, let's say it's Mark Zuckerberg and he's interviewed today about something and it's his clone knows exactly, he's up to date. He's got the memo. He's got all the information. Now, what happened to Mark Zuckerberg's clone the night before could be quite disgusting. He could have been chopped up, hacked, raped, all sorts of things could have happened to him. And as long as the real Mark Zuckerberg plays ball, they won't upload the information from the clone into Zuckerberg's real mind. And if he starts speaking out or doesn't play ball with them, they will start uploading. And that will give him trauma. So he could end up having an aneurysm, a heart attack. And I think that is what's been going on. And Bernie Mac is worth looking into. What happened to Bernie Mac? Yeah, the cloning thing is what they say is selling your soul.
It makes a lot of sense when you see a lot of these stars lose it, right?
Yeah,
I mean, look at Britney Spears.
yeah, that was to do with cloning.
That.
If you look at the videos that she put out, I can't remember the names of them. I'm not much of a fan, but she brought out a music video that was based in a cloning center, and in the song she's saying that she's got
I
a
think I
clone,
remember
and
something about that. And then
yeah,
she came out like a month or two ago with this weird video saying that she was turning 5 years old and she was talking like she was a child and saying
mm-hmm.
she was excited to go to kindergarten. And it was really weird, man.
Is that a malfunction? Did you ever see Mark Zuckerberg? He was interviewed, and
Human.
he came out with that. Yeah, and he's got this hoodie on, this sweatshirt,
Oh yeah,
and
and it's on
he
the
couldn't.
inside.
But you watch him trying to take that off. He's struggling to undo it. He
Yeah,
actually struggles to undo the top and get it off. It's like it was like watching a child try to undo a
yeah.
zip for the very
And
first time. And I thought,
he's
is that a
sweating,
fresh clone?
and he's sweating profusely, isn't he? He's like really
Yeah,
like
yeah.
not looking. Yeah, well,
And if you think how old Facebook is now,
what is it,
Well, he doesn't seem
20?
to have aged at all. 20 odd years, isn't it?
Well, that's a good
And
point.
look
He
at
was in
Mark
his
Zuckerberg.
20s, wasn't he? He was like young when it started. He doesn't
Mm.
seem to have aged. Well, until recently when he turned into the lead singer of um what's that band who's in yellow?
Coldplay,
Coldplay.
Chris Martin. Yeah,
That's right. He did,
yeah,
man, didn't he? Like he just came out one
yeah.
day like, no. Did you ever see that one where he was trying to be cool before he had his makeover and he was talking about this sauce? It's some like sauce that's really popular in America, like Bubba's something sauce, Bubba's rib sauce or something. And he's sitting there talking about, oh, yeah, man, I'm having this sauce. It's very strange. And then he put out another one, and he's got this bookshelf in the background, and this sauce bottle's on the bookshelf, like it's an ornament or something. Very strange stuff, man. It's like he's trying to be normal and human, but he just didn't quite
He can't be.
grasp it, right? That
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it was very weird. I mean, okay, so clones, okay, so. Is that what these children were? What were these
I was going to say it's a nice
baby?
segue, isn't it,
Yeah,
into
yeah, yeah.
Cabbage Patch Babies?
Incubator
Yeah,
babies. Yeah.
yeah. I think so. I think so. Um, you had it going on in Australia. It was quite prevalent here. Baby farms, and that combined with the orphanages, the incubator babies on display at the World's Fairs. I mean that backstory is weak. Um, in England, they say that the babies were on loan, that they'd go to maternity hospitals and take these premature babies and then put them in the incubators on display. I mean, this is a child that's fighting for its bloody life, and we're
Mm.
going to put it in a sideshow. Um, so I don't believe that. And if you look at the baby farms as well, and that were about, you've got literally piles of babies. Now none of these were tagged or anything. So if they had parents, how would the parent know which one was theirs? And you could buy these babies at the World's Fairs. They were being sold.
Mm.
Um, so I don't believe any of that. I do believe, and this again is in plain sight. I mean, for example, Ice Age. I think it's Ice Age 5. Um, Ice Age 5, the film, there is a scene where this character, this I don't know what he is, called Buck, he's got this log, and inside the log is a cabbage, and in the cabbage is a pumpkin. And he grabs hold of it and he says, "Oh, it's my baby, it's Bronwyn, my baby Bronwyn." And he's walking around with this cabbage and he's singing lullabies to it and all this sort of stuff. Um, you've then got, I think it was Toy Story 3, possibly. Um, I might be getting muddled up here. I'm not brilliant with children's films, but there's a scene right at the start of one of the Toy Stories where Woody's chasing a runaway train and it's been stolen by Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. And the train's going to go off the track and the track's been blown. So all these babies on this train are going to die. And just as the train goes onto this bridge that's been blown up, Woody shouts out, "The orphans, the orphans." So I think this has been in plain sight for a long time. So also at the same time that the phenomena of the Cabbage Patch postcards came out, in France, we also saw repopulation postcards with babies for sale. And so I do believe that the Cabbage Patch babies and the massive appearance of kids that went into the Industrial Revolution, that were working in the mines, that were in all the orphanages, and a massive number of those were cloned. I do believe that. And for anybody who thinks, well, we didn't have the technology back then, read the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Yeah,
That's why we are here as a direct result of intervention and cloning. So
exactly. Yeah,
definitely the tech was
yeah.
out there, and if we haven't got the technology, if we didn't have the technology to clone in the 1800s, then how did we have the technology thousands of years ago to build a bloody pyramid? Because we
Mm,
can't do it now.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
I think the technology argument is out the window.
it's very Sumerian, right? And on Enki and
Mm.
creating. I mean,
Enkin
I've read in
Enlil.
that story,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, yeah, that they basically put their DNA into one of the native hominids and create us. Then we have the
yeah,
chromosomes, right? Like apparently we
yeah,
evolved from hominids, Darwinianism.
yeah,
But we have what 23 pairs, right? And they have 24 pairs of
yeah,
chromosomes. So we
yeah.
lost a chromosome, but became more advanced, and then they tell us that chromosomes actually two chromosomes that have been fused together into one. And when
Fused together.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then you add
And that
in
has been proven, hasn't it?
yeah. So this is the
That's a
thing that's
fact.
definitely that's proof of genetic manipulation, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right there.
yeah,
So, and then
yeah.
we got
Make them in
blood
our image, but not
types,
quite as, yeah,
blood types, and all these things, hairlines, all these different weird hairlines we have. I can't like it's yeah, it's there's
yeah,
so much proof that we have been messed with, right? So
absolutely. Yeah,
it's
absolutely. And look at the whole, and these postcards, these Cabbage Patch postcards and the repopulation postcards were really popular in Germany. And what I find a bit of a coincidence is that the word doppelganger and the word kindergarten are both German. And I think that the reason that Germany was hit so much in the early 1900s, and especially in the 1930s and 40s, was because they were operating as a Tartarian country, and they were going. And the reason for the start of the First World War was Cecil Rhodes and the Society of the Elect having this massive fear that Germany was going to be a technological superpower. Well, yeah, I think so too, because they were Tartarian. They were running with Tartarian technology. They still had the infrastructure. They were far more advanced than us. The internal combustion engine, Daimler, was behind the first proper, fully functional internal combustion engine. It's everything is German, and even now, if you're buying a car, and I said to you, okay, you've got you're in Australia, so let's say you've got $40,000. It's going to do a lot of miles. I want you to buy something really reliable but comfortable that's got a bit of status. You'd probably look at a BMW or a Mercedes if you didn't want to break down every 5 minutes.
mm. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you don't hear it as much now, but definitely, German engineering, like that was a type
Yeah,
of thing when I was growing up, right? German engineering's the
mm,
best, they make the best everything.
yeah,
And obviously Dresden and the whole, yeah, WW2
yeah.
bombing and, the Chancellor and all these stories. And
What they,
then
I love calling him that. I think that's
the
brilliant, isn't
Chancellor,
it?
yeah, man.
It, yeah, just dodges the algorithm, doesn't it? Um,
It
But if
does.
you look at what they did at Dresden, and I've written in my book, I've written a lot about Dresden, and Richard Vobes, who I don't, do you know Richard Vobes? He's a big podcaster here
I
in
know,
the
yeah, I know
UK.
of him. I don't know him, but yeah, I know of him, yeah.
I gave him the book before it was out. I gave him a copy to help edit. I wanted him to proofread it for me before I got it published, and he rang me after he'd read the chapter on Dresden, and he said, "I've got to be honest, Guy, that made me feel physically sick." He said, the detail you've gone into about exactly what they did to Dresden and the people that lived there made me want to throw up. I said, people need to know this, Richard. People need to know. You know,
Yeah, well, this is the thing.
what
We
they
all know about the bombing as far as through Tartarian and that, but actually what went on, yeah, was
mm,
was, was a lot worse. It was, well, I mean, God, what was it? A massive MK Ultra ritual while they were, taking out
mm,
the enemy. It
mm.
was, yeah, pretty full on.
Yeah, the hate that they got to, they were talking. Some people claimed that it was over 4,000 degrees, and that people that had escaped the bombings and the shooting, because the planes were coming down, these Mustangs were coming down and shooting animals that were fleeing from the zoo, and the night that the bombing and the shooting took place, when they were machine gunning and bombing, that was the same day that there was a children's parade going through the town, and they gunned them all down. This was a military hospital. town. This was not
Yeah,
of
yeah,
any significance to anything. A lot of refugees there,
yeah.
um, and that people that fled to the basements to hide for cover. The heat got so intense that they were turned into liquid. They were liquefied, um, and all of this has got all of this has gone out the window. And apparently Churchill, who I despise, um, I've read enough and learned enough about him to know that he is not someone we should be proud of being associated with at all. He said that on his deathbed that he bitterly regretted what he'd done.
Mm.
But then, having said that, Darwin on his deathbed said that he didn't believe a single thing he ever wrote.
Yeah, yeah, I know, right? Sold a few books though. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
and a
been a
master
lot
of
of
incest himself. There with that man, inbred. You know, he married. I can't remember if it was his first cousin or his niece or something, but you know, a few of their children died. I think only they had about 10 kids. The first three died when they were babies. I think only two or three of them could actually reproduce, and the children didn't survive. None of them lived long. And he started to. He then actually petitioned the government to look into inbreeding, and they just declined to get involved in it because obviously Queen Victoria was, and our royal family are huge in
inbreeds.
inbreeding. Queen
Yeah.
Victoria had all sorts of problems, and so did her kids. You know, the whole inbreeding thing. So you got someone talking about evolution and natural selection that actually is
There's
inbreeding
an inbreed,
himself.
like inbreed,
Yeah,
man.
that's in. Yeah, yeah. So it's all kind of that's all kind of strange. I'm looking into it at the moment. The book I'm writing at the moment is called Rise of the Clones, the Cabbage Patch Kids.
Oh,
Um, and I've gone into detail. I've just actually finished writing about inbreeding. That's chapter 8, and the chapter before it was actually on cloning itself. Is it possible? Who does it? One of the chapters is on Clonaid in Florida. They're worth looking into. A
yeah,
hundred
yeah,
thousand
yeah,
dollars
yeah,
to pop a
yeah,
new dog out for you, or whatever.
yeah.
Um, so cloning, we've been messing around with this for a very long time. I
Oh,
mean, Sumerians and Mesopotamia, they would create hybrids. One called a
the
kunga is
cryptids.
worth
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
at.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Exactly. I mean, and we had Dolly the sheep in 1989, who then went on to mother babies, right? So she was fertile.
Yes. Yeah. She had
Um,
two sisters as well.
yep. So I
Um,
mean,
and
they've been doing this, yeah, for a while, man.
there's a company in Korea. I can't remember their name off the top of my head. It's not an easy one to pronounce, but there's a company in Korea that clone, and they've cloned all sorts of things. The president of Argentina, he has 5 cloned dogs, cloned from, and they're English Mastiffs,
Wow.
and they're cloned from his dog that he lost. His dog died, called Conan, and he's cloned 5, and they check him out.
Oh,
Just Google him and have a look at his
wow.
face. He is not right. There's something very, very wrong.
Strange going
If
on.
he was sat in a room with you, you'd feel uncomfortable. There's something going on there. And he is related to somebody. I can't remember who it is, but it's someone like Fidel Castro or something like that, as is Justin Trudeau. Um,
Quite a
yeah, not
connection,
a,
right?
yeah, they're not. These are not people that we don't like. These people,
Mm,
um, if you can call them people.
yeah,
So yeah, I think that I think we've been cloning forever,
cool.
and I think that's the Cabbage Patch Kids. Um, and again, in plain sight, you know, they bring out the postcards, and then in the 80s, all of a sudden, we've got this toy, and you adopt it. And if you send a Cabbage Patch doll back to the factory, if you've broken it, they'll try and repair it. If they can't repair it, if it's beyond repair, they return it to the child with a death certificate.
That's almost morbid, man. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah. Actually, with a death certificate. How about that? Your
Oh,
child receiving that in the post.
jeez, man. That's these people are weird. All
Mm.
right. Well, we're gonna have to wrap it up there. I've actually got something else to go to, but wow, that was a fast hour 15. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it
if
was,
you're
wasn't
up
it?
for it, we should do a part two. I'd like to,
Love to.
I'll get together some of these photos of doppelgangers and things, and you actually found that site. I did try to get it working where it's like find
Google
your
Arts and Culture.
find your own doppelganger, but I
Yeah,
couldn't get it working. So maybe we can have a play with that and see if
yeah.
that's
I have
working
had a
or not.
go with it, and nothing really looked like me. But people have had some fun with it, finding paintings in museums that look just like them.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
That'd be
Mm.
interesting because there's a lot of that talk going on. So yeah, man. Yeah, thanks for joining me. Everyone who's watching, Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids, go and buy it. Link below in the description. Get it to be a number one bestseller. And yeah, leave us a comment, like, subscribe. I'll leave also, guys got a channel called Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids. So I'll leave the link to that as well. Go and check it out. It's got some good interviews and things on there and cuts and bits and pieces. And yeah, we'll get you back in a bit short time and maybe continue down this clone um, pathway because that's pretty
Yeah,
interesting. There's a lot of info
yeah.
out
I'd love
there.
to.
Yeah,
I
awesome.
can tell. Yeah, perhaps I can give you a little bit more on Donald Marshall and what happens in these clone centres, what they've done to Britney Spears
Yeah,
and other people. I've got quite a lot on that.
yeah, man, I'd be into it. Yeah, I'll
Mm,
get together what
mm.
I've got and we'll go through it.
Brilliant.
Bloody good. All right, man. Well,
Thank you.
great to talk to you. Have an
And
awesome day,
you.
and I'll talk to
Thank
you
you. And
soon.
you.
Great.
Yeah, take care. Bye
You
for
too.
now.
Thanks, guys. See you, mate.
Bye. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Remember, in the end, nobody wins unless everybody wins.